I'm Tom from Do-It-Yourself Home Automation, and this is a look at the Fitbit Sense smartwatch. This is a health tracking smartwatch, and I'm streaming live here and answering any questions that people have about the Fitbit Sense. So this is a really great watch. Can go into some of the features here, but this is the main screen on it, and the word sense in there obviously tells you that there's a lot of different sensors on this watch, and that's probably the biggest advantage that the Fitbit Sense has over other similar kinds of smartwatches. And really the sensors on here are pretty extensive again. So you have a heart rate sensor, you can see it blinking there with the little green LEDs. You also have a blood oxygen level sensor, and that's going to be measuring your blood oxygen levels at night when you're sleeping. You've got a skin temperature sensor, probably in this big metal kind of piece on the back here. And then you have an electrical activity sensor around the bevel of the watch. And that allows you to take stress readings, and it actually now allows you to take a ECG reading. And it's actually an FDA cleared product now. That came out after the Fitbit Sense originally launched, but you can actually go in there and you can take a heart reading that again is FDA cleared, and you can get a quick read on whether you could have a potential arrhythmia, and then you can go and take a report on that to your doctor. Fitbit will actually create a PDF that you can download and then take to your doctor and ask any questions that you might have about that. So that's a really nice health tracking function that Fitbit has now on the Sense, there's not really much out there that's competing like that. To install those functions, there's apps that you can get here. You can scroll through. If you got this before that feature was enabled in early October, you'll just have to go into your Fitbit app on your phone and download the ECG app, which is here. You can see I've got some other ones in here. I've got New York Times. You can get little headlines, Pandora and Deezer, so you can get music. Got Spotify on there, the Starbucks apps, you can pay at Starbucks. There's a bunch of different apps in there. And if you're just joining me, this is the Fitbit Sense. This is live. Feel free to ask any questions you have on the right of the screen there, and I'm happy to answer them. But all those sensors really feed into a ton of different analytics functions that you can do on the watch here, and a ton of different things that it's able to track. And so some of those, the very basics that you would expect of any Fitbit or really any smartwatch out there at the moment. You can track steps, you can track heart rate using that heart rate sensor, and you can see how many minutes you spend in different heart rate zones, which is really nice when you're exercising. Let's go into the Today app here, and this is where you get your basic stats and information on the Fitbit Sense. If you're just joining us, this is live. Feel free to ask any questions that you have. I've been wearing this watch for many months now. Let's see, I got it in late September of 2020. So I've been wearing it for at least 3 months now. And what is that? Yeah, about 3 months. So this is something I've had on, 24/7. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Just enter them in the chat at the right. And I'm happy to, again, chime in on there. But let's go back to the Today app. So we've got steps, we've got distance on here. And with any of these, you can actually go in and see more information. So if I want to see steps, it's going to show me my number of steps throughout the day. And I can see, when I was most active. It's really one particular time there. And then I can see my weekly step data. So there's a lot of information that you're able to get right on the watch face itself here. So my best day was February the 15th. And I can just basically keep scrolling through and seeing all of the information that I want to see in here. There's this physical button on the side here. It's called a solid state button, so you don't actually press it. It doesn't press in like a traditional button. You just use your thumb and you kind of press it on the side, and it'll go back in the menu. And when Fitbit originally launched, it would take you all the way back to the main menu. Now it seems to work a little bit better. It just goes backwards in the menu. But let's go back to the Today app. You can see I've got an incoming call here, actually, which is demonstrating nicely the fact that you can get call notifications. But I'm not going to answer this because I'm on a live stream right now. But anyway, you can see the call notification comes in, and you can answer the call. It'll answer it on your phone. You can't answer it on the actual watch itself at the moment. But yeah, you can answer it on your phone there. So that's our steps. We can go and see distance. This is calculated based on your personal stride length. And again, you can see this nice breakdown. If you're just joining us, this is live. Feel free to ask any questions that you might have in the chat, and I'm happy to answer them for you. Got distance, steps taken. Let's see what else we've got in here. Floors, so it does have an altimeter. It's able to tell when you go up a staircase or if you're hiking and you're gaining altitude. It's going to measure that for you as well. I think that's a nice function to have because, you know, if you're going to do like a big hike or you just want to see, I see somebody has a question, feel free to ask and I'm happy to answer it in there. Thank you for chiming in. If you're just trying to track how many flights of stairs you're gaining or losing during the day and you want to set a goal, then you can definitely do that and track it as the number of floors on here. Calories burned, this is going to be your basal metabolic rate. I see a question, does it work with iOS? Yes, it does. It works with both Android and iOS. Does it display SpO2? So that's a great question. As I mentioned, if you were here at the beginning, it does have an SpO2 sensor on the back. What it's measuring, though, is it's measuring SpO2 when you're sleeping. And so the way to actually get that reading, you have to install a special clock face. And if you do that and then you sleep with the watch on, you can go over here and see your SpO2 reading for the previous night. So you can see mine was an average of 93%, range between 90 and 96%. And the reason that you can't get it, yeah, no problem. Feel free to ask any other questions that you have. The reason that you can't get it during the daytime is that in order to take an accurate reading, that needs you to be very still. So Fitbit is actually measuring the SpO2 as you sleep, and it actually waits until you're in a deep sleep and then measures that reading. Again, you do have to install that clock face, and then you can see that reading for the day. And then if you actually pull up the Fitbit app, let me see if I can bring it up for you, and you can see. I'll take my phone here, and let me just get this open, ready to go. Feel free to ask any other questions you have about the watch. Again, I've been wearing this for several months now, so I'm happy to chime in with any any information that's helpful. Now I can go into in the Fitbit app. Let me bring this over. So all of the data you're asking about phones. I use Android, but you can use iOS with it. Now I can go through here and see all of my stats broken down from the watch in my app, and one of the stats that you can see is this oxygen saturation graph on here. And this is going to give me the last 30 days of O2 SpO2 data, and you can see it also gives you a range of where you typically are. So it says that last night I was a little bit below my range, not super concerning amount, but it will show you when you're out of range. And you can also see your heart rate variability and breathing rate data in here graphed out. So you can see if there are particular days where you breathe a lot less often or had higher or lower heart rate variability. Generally, higher heart rate variability is a positive thing. And you get your skin temperature data. Again, the skin temperature is a relatively new function, but the SpO2 you're asking about is there. Apple Watch or Fitbit? I think that's a great question. If you're within the Apple, kind of ecosystem already, a lot of people do like the Apple Watch. However, if you want to do health tracking, and so health and fitness are your main goals rather than the apps on the watch, then I would definitely go with the Fitbit Sense versus the Apple Watch. And the reason is that the sensors that it has are just way more advanced. It's got the same things that a lot of watches will have, like the heart rate and that kind of thing. But you get the SpO2, and then you also get the ECG sensor that I mentioned. So you can actually take a heart reading, and it'll tell you if you have a risk of a arrhythmia. And that's actually an FDA cleared function. So you put your fingers on the side of the watch, and I would have to put it on my wrist to do it, but it'll give you a 30-second reading and then a report to send to your doctor. And then also you can do a stress reading. So that's one of the really cool functions on here as well. If I go in and I go to this EDA scan, you basically cover the front of the watch where it has the sensor on here for 2 minutes, and you can do like a breathing exercise or a meditation, and it will actually tell you your overall stress levels, and it'll tell you if you've been able to reduce your heart rate during that time. The skin temperature, another function that's really great to have. So you can tell your skin temperature over time, and again, you get a graph of that. Let me pull up what that looks like again in the app. And then they break everything down into these scores. So I can show you that you get a stress management score to say how well you've been handling stress overall based on all of the metrics that it's gathering. And it gives you that on a daily basis. So you got a lot of ability to manage your health in here and wellness. And to me, that's the biggest advantage of the Fitbit Sense versus the Apple Watch. The apps on here, honestly, are just okay. Some of them work pretty well. Some of them leave a lot to be desired. But the Apple Watch would probably have better apps. But, again, if you're trying to track health, this is definitely the most advanced smartwatch out there. And I just like that it does have all of those really good health tracking abilities. So thank you for that question. Feel free to ask anything else. If other people are just tuning in, feel free to ask any questions you have in the chat. I'm happy to answer them. Let me go ahead and open this back up again. Another thing that you would definitely likely be using the Fitbit Sense to do is to track exercise. So here's the app to do exercise tracking. It does have a built-in GPS. That's a really nice function. And you can do a run, you can do a bike ride, and it will actually track your exact location when you're doing that. And it'll give you a map after you're done exercising of where you ran or hiked or biked. And that's nice to see. You get to see a breakdown of exactly where you went, the trail you took, and you can save that and see it in the Fitbit app. You can also do all different kinds of exercises. Circuit training is a good one for just a general exercise. And, golf, hiking, intervals, kickboxing, martial arts, Pilates. There's all these different things you can track in here. And swim, so it is waterproof to a certain depth. Certainly what you could do in a typical pool. I wouldn't take it scuba diving, but you can definitely track swimming, and that's a nice function to have. It'll track laps, I believe, when you're swimming. And you can also track steps and heart rate and other data when you're doing any of these other exercises. Yoga, just a general workout. You can start each of these, and then it's going to measure and show you different stats for your workout. It's, calories burned, your heart rate, which is probably reading from my finger at the moment. It'll give you the time, and depending on the exercise you selected, other data as well, like splits for your different lap times and that kind of thing. So definitely really good exercise tracking functions, and that's another thing that Fitbit, I think, does better than anybody else is any of that kind of exercise and health and wellness kind of tracking. So thank you for those questions. If you do have any other questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. Anyone just tuning in, this is live. I'm happy to answer anything that you want to know about the Fitbit Sense after a couple of months now of wearing this watch. Let's see what other functions we can go and take a look at on here. So we looked at SpO2. You can customize your clock face, so you can change this to match whatever mood you're in or whatever you want to show. You're also able to go through here and change the bands that you have on this. So if you want to change the band to be a little bit more stylish or to put something on there that's more of a sporty band that you would use when you're working out, you can definitely go in and do that as well. The user interface, it's pretty nice to be able to go through and use the touch screen. The button, as you've probably seen in here, is a little bit finicky, but I think I've gotten the hang of using it reasonably well. And I wear this all the time, so I have submerged it in water every single day, and it's definitely held up totally fine to that kind of use. Music, if you want to listen to music on it, you can synchronize it with your phone and transfer music over to Deezer, or you can stream with Spotify on there, and you would want to have Bluetooth headphones. If you have Bluetooth headphones, you can sync them with the watch, and you can listen while you're out and about or whatever you're out and doing, if you're exercising, if you're taking a walk. Nice function so that you have it right there on your wrist and you don't have to be fumbling around with your phone in order to get that music. Same deal with the GPS. It's nice to have that on your wrist so that you don't have to always get your phone out in order to track a run or track where you're located. Some other functions, let's take a look through. Again, apps, there's some basic things. Starbucks, you can put in your Starbucks card and you can swipe that. It does have an NFC chip, so you can do payments if you set up your wallet with it. So you can actually pay by tapping the watch on compatible card readers at different restaurants or a gas station. I don't use that function very much, but you can do that if you want to. I think there's extra security required to enable that on the watch. If you are just joining us, we're talking here about the Fitbit Sense smartwatch. This is, in my opinion, the best health tracking smartwatch out there currently. And I'm answering any questions that you have live here. So if you have anything you want to know about the Fitbit, then please go ahead and ask. See, this got cut off a little bit, it looks like, but does it share all the health-related information? Could you just type the second part of that again? Sorry, I'm not able to see the second part of the question. Does it share all the health-related information? I can try to answer based on what I see on the chat here. But if you're asking about how it shares the information in terms of your health, you can pull up all of the data like I showed in the Fitbit app. Let me get that up on my phone here. And if you're asking if it shares it with your doctor, then the answer is you can download things with Fitbit. Yes, it does. So the question is, does it share all the health-related information with Fitbit? Yes. So if you have concerns about data privacy in terms of that, it's not just storing it locally on your phone. Here's the app again. It is, in fact, sending it to Fitbit, and then the processing of that data is happening probably out on a cloud somewhere. So that is definitely something to be aware of if you have any kind of concerns about data privacy. I think there's good encryption. I think it does a pretty good job of handling the data, but that is definitely something to be aware of, is that the data will be going from the watch to your phone to sync, and the Fitbit app syncs that data to get it off of the watch. It'll hold a couple days worth of data, so if you don't have your phone, maybe you're traveling, you don't sync it, it'll keep the data for a while. That was helpful. Great, I'm glad that helped. Yeah, feel free to ask any other questions that you have in there. So it'll store the data on the watch, transfer it over to the phone. The phone then hands it off to Fitbit, and you can actually enable Wi-Fi on the watch too. So I think it'll transmit even if you're on your home Wi-Fi network. Data goes off to Fitbit. Fitbit crunches all that data and gives you the breakdown of stats, which again, I'll try to pull up here. If you're just joining us, we're talking about the Fitbit Sense smartwatch. Feel free to ask any questions over in the chat. I'm happy to answer questions live here. This is a live broadcast. So all of these metrics are calculated by Fitbit, probably out in the cloud somewhere. And then you can access them on the phone. So you can see in the Fitbit app, I can pull this up. You can go to the Fitbit website to get it in your browser. And then it also hands some of those metrics back to the watch, where you can go into that Today app that I showed, and you can pull up those metrics. So you can see things like, you can see my step count. Actually just started wearing this for today. I was charging it for this broadcast, so I've only done officially 60 steps in there, and that stays in sync with the data that's on the phone, and then it's also going to be on the watch and also on Fitbit servers there. Some of the metrics that require a little bit more calculation, sleep is a great example of that. The Fitbit will hand that data off to the cloud, and you won't get a sleep metric until a little bit later, usually in the morning. You can get sharing information with other health. So you can get other apps that will access your Fitbit data, and you can actually connect Fitbit to other services to do tracking and storage and that kind of thing. So you definitely can pull up that data Not as familiar if you're using iOS with exactly how that process works on there, but I use it with some apps on my phone. I use it with an app from Stanford University where you can pull in and participate in studies related to wearables. So I know there's definitely an ability to send your data. That said, the data that it does send is relatively limited. It's things like steps and heart rate, but there's not as much ability to access those more advanced health metrics. So, skin temperature and that kind of thing you can get in the Fitbit app, but there's less ability to share that and put it into other places. So I think there's probably still working on that, but it's not something that's exactly built in at the moment. Feel free to ask any other questions if you're just joining us here. If you have anything else you want to know, there's these little icons down at the bottom here showing the different sensors. Let's see if we can get those in focus in the camera. So yeah, the heart rate, body temperature, distance, and SpO2 are some of the things that it's telling you in here that it can track. And then it's saying it is waterproof to 50 meters. So that's actually better than I was thinking. It's pretty deep. 50 meters, about 150 feet. So you probably could take it scuba diving unless you're going really deep. I don't know that I necessarily would, but certainly if you're going to go into a pool, even if you're doing diving, that kind of thing, the Fitbit Sense will be totally fine for that kind of use. And in fact, it's able to track swimming, as I showed before. Another function that's really great here that I like to use is the sleep tracking function. So if you go into the Today app, you can pull up your sleep for the previous night. Actually, it's going to tell me that I slept 4.5 hours. I actually slept more than that. I just took the watch off to charge it relatively early in the morning, again, to make sure I've got enough battery here. But if you wear it for a typical night, it will record that sleep data. Fitbit's very good at recording sleep data. I think their quality of sleep data is excellent. And then you can go into the Fitbit app and you can pull up the sleep score for each night. And it'll actually show you how long you slept. It'll show you a metric for how good your sleep was. And then you can go into any of these records here. So let me open one up. And it'll actually tell you the time you spent asleep, the proportion of deep and REM sleep, which are more restorative types of sleep. And then this is going to be the restoration score, which is based on your heart rate and also how much you moved during the night. So they're crunching a lot of data and they're giving you a sleep score. So it's not just, how many hours did I sleep? It's actually this fairly detailed breakdown of sleep stages, sleep quality. That's, I think, a really nice function too. It's one of my favorite functions actually on the Fitbit is, getting the really detailed sleep data. So that's something that if you care about that, if you're trying to improve your sleep, it's really nice to have that. And you can get a breakdown of the sleep score and exactly what goes into that as well. You can also do these programs in there to try to improve your sleep over time. You can see different nights, you get different amounts, and you don't have to tell it when you go to sleep. That's something that I think is great. It actually just detects that based on the sensor readings. So it's going to do that sleep logging automatically. And it's not always perfect, but you can always update the sleep times if something doesn't look quite right. But that's one of the reasons why it takes a little time to get that metric. It wants to know you're definitely asleep or awake for the day before it goes ahead and does that. Because you could have just gotten up, to use the bathroom in the night or whatever. It doesn't know that, so it waits until it's very confident that you're awake. Exercise tracking in there, you can see. Food, if you want to log food, you can do that in the Fitbit app, and it'll show you a breakdown of calories in versus calories out. Heart rate, you can also get your resting heart rate and track that over time. And there's a function you can use to actually get a cardio fitness report as well that'll tell you how good your cardio fitness is, and you can improve that generally over time with exercise, and you can track the amount of water that you're drinking too. Definitely a good function if you are concerned about being dehydrated, or especially if you're doing a lot of exercise. So that is the Fitbit Sense, and if you have any other questions, feel free to ask them now. I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, thanks so much for tuning in and watching my stream.